On the morning of January 24th, 2006, Jennifer Kesse was expected to show up at her job in Orlando, Florida. At 24 years old, she was already achieving milestones many her age only dreamed of: a stable career, a new condo, and plans for the future. But that morning, Jennifer never arrived at work. She never called in sick, and she never came home. What followed was one of the most puzzling and enduring missing persons cases in modern Florida history. A promising young woman, seemingly happy and thriving, vanished without leaving behind a single definitive clue to explain what happened to her. In the hours and days that followed, her family and friends mounted a desperate search. Investigators uncovered only fragments of a story: a car found abandoned a mile away, a shadowy figure caught on surveillance footage, and a growing sense that Jennifer's disappearance had been meticulously planned or chillingly opportunistic. Almost 2 decades later, the mystery remains. Jennifer's family continues to seek answers, and her story continues to resonate, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a reminder of how quickly ordinary life can be shattered. Today, we examine the facts of Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, the days before, the evidence left behind, and the theories that have kept her name alive long after the trail went cold. Jennifer Joyce Kesse was born on May 20th, 1981, to Drew and Joyce Kesse in New Jersey. She grew up alongside her younger brother, Logan, in a close-knit and supportive family. Those who knew Jennifer described her as intelligent, independent, and full of life, a young woman who exuded confidence but always remained grounded. From an early age, Jennifer was known for her determination. She graduated from Vivian Gaither High School in Tampa, Florida, before attending the University of Central Florida, where she earned a degree in finance. Friends and professors recalled her as diligent, self-sufficient, and optimistic about her future. By January 2006, Jennifer had established herself professionally and personally. She worked as a financial project manager for Central Florida Investments, a timeshare development company. In a role that demanded organization and leadership, she excelled, and she had recently been promoted, something she was particularly proud of. Her personal life reflected the same maturity. Jennifer had been dating Rob Allen, a young man who lived in Fort Lauderdale, and while the two managed a long-distance relationship, it was clear to those close to her that she saw him as a meaningful part of her future. Jennifer had also just purchased her first home, a condominium in the Mosaic at Millennia Complex in Orlando. Buying her own place at 24 was something she spoke of with pride. She had moved in a few months earlier and was still getting settled, but marked a milestone of independence she'd worked hard to reach. Her social circle included her family, who she stayed in frequent contact with, and a tight group of friends who described her as trustworthy and loyal. Jennifer maintained a routine that balanced her career ambitions, personal relationships, and social life, a balance that made her disappearance all the more baffling. There were no obvious signs of trouble. She was not known to take risks or engage with questionable people. In every outward respect, Jennifer's life was on track. It is perhaps this very ordinariness, a young woman simply living her life, that makes her story resonate. Jennifer's disappearance wasn't preceded by threats, arguments, or a chaotic lifestyle. She was simply there one day and gone the next. On Monday, January 23rd, 2006, Jennifer Kesse seemed to be enjoying a normal start to the week. She had just returned from a quick getaway to Street Croix in the Virgin Islands, where she and her boyfriend, Rob Allen, had spent time with friends. Jennifer returned home late Sunday night and stayed at Rob's place in Fort Lauderdale before driving herself back to Orlando early Monday morning. That day, she worked a full shift at Central Florida Investments. Co-workers reported nothing unusual about her demeanor. She was in good spirits and spoke about how much she had enjoyed her trip. She also mentioned that her condo complex was undergoing significant construction and that she sometimes felt uneasy with a number of unfamiliar workers in the area. After work, she spoke on the phone with her parents, catching up and confirming she would call again the next morning. That evening, she also spoke to her brother, Logan, and to Rob. Each conversation painted a picture of someone moving through her usual routine, making plans, and staying connected to those she loved. According to Rob, their last conversation that evening included a small disagreement. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the kind of minor tension that happens in long-distance relationships. He later said it was resolved quickly, and nothing about it gave him pause. At some point that night, Jennifer likely began settling in at her condo. Her parents would later find that the bed was slept in and her shower had been used. Her car, a black Chevy Malibu, was parked outside when she went to bed, and she had her phone with her. It was just another quiet evening, the end of another ordinary day. Nobody knew it would be the last time anyone would hear her voice. Tuesday morning began, for Jennifer, much like any other. At around 6 a.m., she spoke briefly to Rob on the phone before he left for work. It would be the last confirmed conversation she had. Her parents, who lived a few hours away in Bradenton, expected her usual morning call, but never heard from her. Still, they assumed she was just running late. Jennifer was known to keep a tight schedule, typically leaving for work between 7:30 and 8 a.m. By mid-morning, though, concerns began to grow. Jennifer's employer contacted her parents to say she hadn't arrived at the office and hadn't called to say she'd be late. That was highly unusual for someone as punctual and responsible as Jennifer. Calls to her cell phone went straight to voicemail. Friends tried texting her, but got no response. At first, her family held out hope that she'd simply been delayed by an errand or perhaps a flat tire. But as the hours passed with no word, that hope began to fade. Around 3 p.m., Rob also tried to call her and received no answer. He assumed she was busy at work, but grew uneasy when he still hadn't heard from her later that evening. By early evening, Jennifer's parents, Drew and Joyce, decided to drive to Orlando. They arrived at her condo shortly, before 10 p.m. They found no obvious signs of trouble. The door was locked, and nothing inside appeared out of place. Her purse, keys, and cell phone were missing, suggesting she had left for work as usual. But small details stood out. A wet towel hung in the bathroom, as though she had just stepped out of the shower. The clothes she likely wore to bed were on the floor, and her work outfit for the day appeared to be missing. The condo itself was clean and orderly, just as Jennifer always kept it. What wasn't there was her car, the black Chevy Malibu she would have driven to work. That detail cemented their worry. If she had left for work as usual, why hadn't she arrived? And where was her car now? By midnight, Jennifer's family contacted Orlando police to report her missing. In the hours that followed, friends and family began making calls, knocking on doors, and retracing her likely route to work. But there were no immediate answers, and no sign of Jennifer anywhere. The hours after Jennifer's disappearance became a blur of mounting concern and quick action. By the time her parents arrived at her condo and contacted police late on January 24th, they already sensed that something was wrong. When officers from the Orlando Police Department arrived, they initially treated the situation as a routine missing adult case. Jennifer was, after all, a young professional who might have simply decided to take time away. But her family insisted this was out of character. Friends and relatives began arriving at the condo that night to help search. They went through her belongings, trying to determine if anything unusual stood out. Her bed was made the way she normally left it. The bathroom showed signs of her morning routine, and her makeup and hair tools were in place, all indicators that she had prepared to leave for work that morning. Her parents also noted what wasn't there. Jennifer's work bag, her cell phone, her keys, and her car were all missing, suggesting she had left the condo but never arrived at her destination. As the evening wore on, the group fanned out into the neighborhood. Friends drove the route she normally took to work, looking for any sign of an accident or her black Chevy Malibu. They called hospitals and checked with towing companies, but nothing turned up. By the following morning, January 25th, the search had expanded. Police began canvassing the area, speaking with neighbors, construction workers, and employees at nearby businesses. Flyers were printed and distributed across the community. It quickly became clear that no one had seen Jennifer leave her condo that morning. At least, no one who had come forward. For a woman who lived a predictable, careful life. She seemed to have simply disappeared into thin air. On January 26th, 2 days after Jennifer vanished, a break in the case seemed possible. At around noon, police received a call from a resident of the Huntington on the Green apartment complex, about a mile from Jennifer's condo. The caller reported that a black Chevy Malibu had been parked in the lot for 2 days, seemingly abandoned. Officers arrived and confirmed it was Jennifer's car. It was locked, and the exterior showed no obvious signs of damage or struggle. Inside, detectives found personal belongings, her work bag, some clothing, and other items she would typically have with her. Curiously, her cell phone, keys, and purse were not in the car, and there were no signs of a violent encounter. The car was processed for evidence. Forensic technicians dusted it for fingerprints and collected fibers, but the findings were inconclusive. Investigators did note that the driver's seat had been moved farther back than Jennifer would have needed, suggesting that someone taller had driven it last. Attention quickly shifted to the apartment complex itself. Huntington on the Green was known for its high crime rates and transient population. Police began canvassing residents and asking for anyone who may have seen Jennifer or the car being parked. The biggest lead came from a security camera at the complex. Although the camera was set up to monitor the pool area, it also partially captured the parking lot. Investigators reviewed the footage and found something chilling. At approximately noon on January 24th, the same day Jennifer failed to show up at work, the video showed her car pulling into the lot. A figure emerged from the driver's side, walked away casually, and never returned. Detectives froze the footage and studied it frame by frame. The individual, dressed in work clothes and carrying what appeared to be a bag, kept their head down and moved deliberately. Even more frustratingly, the camera angle was obstructed by a fence. In 3 separate frames where the person passed through view, their face was obscured by vertical posts, leaving no clear image of their identity. This shadowy figure became the case's most enduring mystery. A person who seemed to know exactly what they were doing and who managed to leave almost no trace behind. The discovery of the car and the security footage gave investigators a crucial timeline and raised the stakes. Jennifer had disappeared sometime that morning, and her car had been moved by someone else by noon. But beyond that, the case only grew more complicated. The surveillance footage from Huntington on the Green quickly became the focal point of the investigation. To this day, it remains one of the most recognizable yet frustrating pieces of evidence in Jennifer Kesse's case. The footage was captured at exactly 12 p.m. on January 24th, the same day Jennifer vanished. It shows her black Chevy Malibu pulling into the complex's parking lot. A single figure exits the driver's side and walks away down a sidewalk, out of view. Investigators scrutinized the grainy black and white video frame by frame. The figure appears to be of average height, wearing light-colored clothing that resembles a painter's or construction worker's uniform. They carry what seems to be a bag in one hand. But the camera's placement and design created an unexpected obstacle. In all 3 frames, where the figure's head and upper body are visible, they are perfectly aligned with vertical bars on a security fence. This unintentional occlusion meant that the individual's face, and even a clear view of their build, was effectively blocked in every still. Detectives attempted to enhance the images, but the resolution was too low to produce anything meaningful. Analysts determined that the person's height ranged between 5'3" and 5'5", based on the known dimensions of the area they walked through. That detail alone led to speculation that the figure may have been female, but investigators cautioned that it was impossible to make a definitive determination from the footage. The casual demeanor of the person in the video raised further questions. They did not appear hurried or nervous. They parked the car properly, locked it, and walked away as though they belonged in the area. Some theorized that the person may have been a worker familiar with the neighborhood, or someone who had specifically chosen Huntington on the Green because of its transient population and lack security. The footage was released to the public within days, and tips poured in. Some claimed to recognize the figure's gait or clothing. Others speculated about the possibility of a former employee from Jennifer's workplace, or someone from the construction crews she'd reportedly felt uncomfortable around. Police followed up on each lead, but none led to a positive identification. To this day, the individual in the footage remains unknown. The video, while haunting, provided no answers, only more questions. It gave investigators a window into what happened after Jennifer vanished, but no indication of who had taken her, where she had gone, or why she had been targeted in the first place. For Jennifer's family, the footage was a source of torment. They believed it showed the person responsible for her disappearance, possibly even her killer, calmly walking away, shielded by nothing more than chance and a poorly positioned fence. The grainy clip has been replayed countless times on television and in online forums, yet it still offers no clarity. A faceless figure, walking away into anonymity, remains the most tangible link to Jennifer's last known moments. With the discovery of Jennifer's car and the surveillance footage, investigators began to widen the scope of their search. They canvassed the Huntington on the Green complex extensively, interviewing residents and employees. Some neighbors reported seeing the car arrive, but didn't pay attention to the driver. Others admitted they hadn't noticed anything unusual at all. No one came forward to definitively identify the person in the video. Attention also turned to Jennifer's own condo complex, Mosaic at Millennia. At the time of her disappearance, significant renovations and construction were underway there, and many of the workers were not formally vetted. Jennifer had mentioned to her family and friends that she sometimes felt uncomfortable with the behavior of some workers, saying she caught them staring or making inappropriate remarks. Detectives interviewed dozens of workers who were on site at Mosaic in the days before and after her disappearance. Background checks revealed minor offenses among some employees, but nothing that directly tied any of them to Jennifer's case. Investigators also considered other possibilities: a carjacking, a stranger abduction, even someone she may have crossed paths with at work or while traveling. Every scenario was explored, but no single theory gained traction. Teams of volunteers helped conduct searches in the surrounding area, combing through fields, wooded lots, and drainage canals. Police brought in tracking dogs and helicopters, but no trace of Jennifer was found. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation struggled to maintain momentum. With no witnesses, no clear suspect, and no physical evidence linking anyone to Jennifer's disappearance, detectives found themselves chasing shadows. Still, her family refused to give up. They continued to press the department for updates, held vigils, and kept her story in the media, determined to find answers, no matter how long it took. As the weeks turned into months, the search for Jennifer Kesse continued, but answers remained elusive. Her family launched their own parallel efforts to find her. They created a dedicated website, distributed thousands of flyers, and even hired private investigators to pursue leads the police had let go cold. Drew and Joyce Kesse appeared on national news programs, hoping to keep her story alive and encourage new tips. Over time, though, the Orlando Police Department began to scale back its active investigation. Without clear suspects or new evidence, the case stalled. The Kesses grew frustrated with what they perceived as a lack of urgency. In the years that followed, Jennifer's family filed a lawsuit against the Orlando Police Department to gain access to her case files. They argued that transparency might generate fresh perspectives and help uncover something investigators missed. In 2019, a judge ruled in their favor, and the family was given more than 16,000 pages of documents, audio recordings, and photographs. Yet even with that information, no breakthrough came. For the Kesse family, the hardest part was not knowing. The absence of evidence, no body, no confirmed sightings, no confession, left them caught between hope and despair. Drew Kesse described it as living in a nightmare you can't wake up from. Anniversaries passed, marked by vigils and renewed media attention. Occasionally, new tips surfaced. Someone thought they recognized the figure in the surveillance footage. Someone else claimed to have seen a woman matching Jennifer's description. Each time, investigators followed up. Each time, the lead went nowhere. Nearly 2 decades after her disappearance, the mystery persists. Jennifer's name still appears on missing persons lists, Her story still recirculates in documentaries and podcasts. But for her family, the only thing that matters is bringing her home, whatever that may mean now. In the absence of hard evidence, theories about Jennifer's disappearance have flourished. Investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths have all weighed in, offering different possibilities, none of them conclusive. One of the most widely discussed theories involves the construction workers at Mosaic at Millennia. Jennifer reportedly expressed discomfort with their behavior, and many of them came from out of town and were not easily traceable. Some speculate that she may have confronted one of them about inappropriate behavior the morning she disappeared, leading to a confrontation. Another theory suggests a random abduction. Orlando, like many cities, has its share of crime, and Jennifer may have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Perhaps someone targeted her as she left for work, forced her into her car, and later abandoned it at Huntington on the Green. Others have floated the idea of a carjacking gone wrong. Jennifer drove a late-model black Chevy Malibu, a fairly common vehicle, but one that could still have attracted attention. Yet no evidence of a struggle was found in the car. More speculative theories suggest someone she knew, perhaps a disgruntled co-worker or acquaintance, may have been involved. But police could never establish a credible suspect from her personal or professional life. Finally, some wonder whether the person captured on surveillance video was a stranger who saw an opportunity, or someone who knew her routine and planned to intercept her that morning. The deliberate way the figure parked her car and walked away, unhurried, remains one of the case's most unsettling details. In the end, all of these theories share one frustrating trait. They remain just that, theories. With no physical evidence or credible witness testimony, investigators have been unable to eliminate or confirm any single scenario. And so the questions linger, unanswered. Nearly 20 years after Jennifer Kesse disappeared, her family continues to search for answers. Drew and Joyce Kesse, now in their 70s, have devoted their lives to keeping Jennifer's name in the public eye. They work closely with private investigators and maintain a dedicated website and social media presence for tips and updates. They hold annual vigils, not only to honor Jennifer, but also to remind the public and law enforcement that her case is still unresolved. Over the years, they followed up on hundreds of leads themselves, often traveling at their own expense to speak with potential witnesses or investigate reported sightings. They've pushed for legal reforms that would give families of missing adults greater access to investigative records, an effort inspired by their own legal battles with the Orlando Police Department. For the Kesses, the search is about more than finding justice. It's about bringing Jennifer home, however that may happen. As Drew has often said, "We don't care who you are or why you did it. Just tell us where she is." Their determination has kept Jennifer's story alive long after the public's attention moved on. And though the years have been hard, they continue to believe that someone, somewhere, still holds the key to unlocking the truth. Jennifer Kesse's disappearance remains one of Florida's most haunting unsolved cases. A young woman with a bright future, gone without a trace in the space of a single morning. Her story endures because it speaks to a deeper unease, that even the most careful, grounded lives can be upended in an instant. That ordinary routines can hide extraordinary dangers. What happened to Jennifer that morning in January 2006? Who was the person captured on surveillance video, calmly walking away from her car? Why has no one come forward to break the silence? Those questions still have no answers. But Jennifer's family refuses to let her be forgotten, and neither should we. So what do you think of today's video? Do you have something you want us to feature next? Tell us in the comments. It will also mean a lot to us if you like and subscribe. Close the book if you can. This is Black Chapter.